All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen who have joined us on this Dr. Fundi channel this afternoon. Today, being the 28th of August, it's still the Women's Month. Today, we are continuing with our feature, a feature that we call The Future is Female. All right, so up until now, we have been profiling people who are in the healthcare space, medical doctors, medical specialists, and other people who are in the healthcare space. But today and tomorrow, we are going to be featuring people who are highly accomplished, in the business world. And the first of those people today is Dr. Nombasa Tsengwa, somebody that I've known for at least 40 years. So that will tell you a little bit about, my age, but not about her. This thing about age and females. So I don't want to talk about age and females. It's inappropriate to talk about that. But I've known her for quite a long time. We were at high school together, but she was my senior at high school. But I need to just tell you a little bit about our special guest today. Nombasa Tsengwa is the CEO, designated MD of Minerals Exxaro Resources Limited. Now, she has a PhD in agronomy from the University of Maryland, College Park in the US. She also has got an executive development program, on the leadership and management side from INSEAD. But on the academic side, besides the PhD from University of Maryland, she also has got a master's degree, before then, and that she got from East Illinois University, and before then she had a bachelor's degree from the University of the Western Cape. So that gives you a picture that she's one of those people who is not scared of burning the midnight oil. But besides that, when you look at her work experience, she has more than 18 years of executive management and board experience in the public and private sector. In 2003, she joined Kumba Resources as the GM for Safety, Health and Environment, what we normally refer to as SHE. All right. In 2007, she became an Executive General Manager, Safety and Sustainable Development. In 2010, she became directly involved with the management of coal operations as the GM of Captive Mines and the GM of Mpumalanga Operations. In 2015, she was appointed as the acting executive head of coal operations and was subsequently appointed as the executive head of coal operations from July 2016. In July 2020, just in the middle of the COVID pandemic, when everybody was complaining about the pandemic, it actually brought some good news for her. Because because she was appointed on a new portfolio of heading up the development of the mineral strategy as one of the core businesses, which include the coal portfolio and operations as the managing director, minerals. March this year, exactly a year since we had our first case of COVID here in South Africa, she was appointed as the CEO designate. She is the 2017 winner, Standard Bank Business Woman of the Year Award, and most recently, 2018 winner of the Pan-African Awards, Africa's most influential woman in business and government, mining industry category. She's an avid long-distance runner who has completed 9 Comrades marathons. So yeah, we have a powerhouse of a guest here today. Dr. Nombasa Tsengwa, welcome to the Dr. Fundi channel.
Thank you very much, my good doctor. In those years, we used to call you Fundi, but yeah, you are our Dokotela. And I'm happy to be on your channel this afternoon.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, when I was planning to invite you, I was thinking, sure, people at your level in business, you know, it's not a situation of no, you work a Monday to Friday or an 8 to 4 during the week. You know, when you are in charge of an organization of your size, that is the, you know, Exxaro, you know, you basically responsible for making sure things happen, you know, all the time. So you may not have the time, you know, to join us, but I'm glad that you actually did not hesitate. You gave me a thumbs up, you know, and for that, I'm very, very grateful. And I hope that many people who have logged in to follow our conversation will understand why you had to be here. Basically, whilst you had gone out briefly, during the month of August, we normally have these profile interviews of women from South Africa who are doing great things in their chosen professions or careers. So since the 1st of August, then we've had a series of interviews. But because I'm a healthcare person, so I'm a bit biased. So I've had many people coming from that sector. But now I am waiting, you know, saving the best for last. So yeah, you know, top leaders from the business world. So you are the first one today. And for the rest of the days of this August month, we will be profiling people from the business world. So thank you very much. And the purpose of these profile interviews is really to celebrate your success, is also to motivate others, inspire others, that despite many challenges that are structural challenges, you know, in society or even in business, you know, the issue of patriarchy is a big problem. You know, the issue of racism is a big problem. But it is still possible to navigate those and get to the top. And so part of our conversation is really you sharing with us how you've managed to navigate all of these, especially in an industry that is very much historically male dominated. How have you managed to get the men to actually, you know, work with you, you know, and actually see that their future is tied up to your success as a leader?
Indeed.
All right. So thank you once again. I thought I needed to just add that to the bio to just give a context of why today. But most people will know Dr. Nombasa Tsengwa, you know, but I always want us to start where everything started. You know, where was Nombasa born? What kind of family in terms of size? Firstborn, middle child, lastborn, and what kind of values and principles, you know, were instilled in her that are still helping her as she navigates life today?
Yeah, well, very interesting start, Fundile, because sometimes we forget our origins and that which made us who we are. And you know, as a doctor as well, that when things go wrong in your life later, you know, psychologists try to trace back to where you came from in a way of trying to find, you know, clues of what may have gone wrong. But also, really, firstly, thank you for the invitation as well. I tend not to, I don't offer a lot of interviews. I tend to be very private as a person. And people have been surprised about, you know, who I have become, because I'm not in the spectacle, Fundile. But I must first say, when it came from you, a person I know, a person of the values that you espouse, I thought I cannot miss this opportunity. So I do probably have that bias. So really, thank you for this invitation. The other thing is that weekends I rest. I don't give time because I tend to work very hard during the week, but I thought I would not miss this for anything. Fundile was born in Fort Malan. Well, I would say Kukajane.
Yes.
Even though we prefer to say we're from Edujwa because Edujwa tends to be a bit better than Gajana. You can get, I'm not sure you can get even chicken licking in Gajana, but you can get chicken licking from Edujwa. But a rural girl, and I obviously am very proud of that. Born to a family of 7 children, and I am number 5. So I'm in the, as diggy, where, you're not preferred, you're not liked or whatever it is, you're just in the middle. And, having wonderful parents. My mom, when we were born, was a housewife. My dad was a teacher, a school principal, in fact, of the same school we went to as kids. So he was our dad at home, but our school principal during the school hours. A very strict father, very, very generous man, very loving man, but extremely strict. And his values were so much set in academics and really succeeding and really hitting those marks, high marks. So, when your report came, at the end of the year, it was a big deal in our family because we all had to sit, the 7 of us, and he would start with the firstborn, and by the time it comes to you, you know what is coming. But that was really my father's value. And let me finish my dad first before I go to my mother. My dad was a traditional father, like most traditional African men, whose belief was, educated as he was, relatively, his understanding was that, look, girl children are going to get married. Boy children will carry the family name. And for some reason, he had a bias towards educating boy children, up to university, because in his view, he was investing in a long term. But when it comes to his girl children, he thought if you become a teacher, that's good enough. But he didn't know what was waiting for him when it came to me personally. And we will share with that as we go along. My mother, very special lady, as everybody would probably say about their mother. Very quiet, but very strategic, very bright person. In fact, she was the cleverest of the 2, we believed. She's the one who used to get scholarships. Scholarships are not easy to come those days, bursaries, let me put that way. She studied through her high school and her nursing training, having scholarships and bursaries. My father was a hard worker. So mom, a lady, a person who's a homemaker, like most of our mothers. And I don't think mom had space with my dad to be herself, because that, she's just larger than Lahundu, he takes over. He's very much like me, of course, noisy, taking over everywhere. So mom had to early in her marriage find a space of quiet, very quiet. But she's instilled a lot of good values, obviously, responsibilities of being a woman. And I appreciated what she did, even with her firstborn brother. She taught him how to cook. There, as teenagers, we had taken over all the functions of the home. One thing that you would not believe I've learned from my father, as much as my father was setting us up for marriage, one thing he said when I got to varsity, he said, please, my child, wherever you end up and you are stranded, never ask a man for money. Even if I don't know where you are, give me a call. I will not ask you where you are or why you are there, but when you are back home, you will have to tell me why you ended up with that boy wherever you were. So yeah, those are the parents I had.
We're taught not to, to wait for money from blessers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, my father said, I would rather be a blesser, don't have blessers. Yeah. And when we asked him, he says, you know what, if there's one thing, that night, that day, he takes or you take money from him. You will have to pay for it. And he never would go further than that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were number 5 in this, group of 7, kids. Now, I know there was a brother of yours who was our teacher, good boy. And, was he ahead of you or behind?
Yeah. 2 brothers you are talking to in one day. But you remember we had the one that was teaching mathematics, Umandisi.
Yes,
They used to call him Fanomdala,
Yes.
And then Uboy was the other brother. We were together at St. John's, who was just 1 class ahead of me.
Yes.
And he actually had come after him. Sifana kakhulu naye, if you look at Boy, but Mandisi was a mathematician who taught you, and also a physicist, yes, as well.
Yes. Oh, lovely, lovely. So being most, I'm also a middle child. So there is a certain personality that you develop because you're neither the firstborn nor the lastborn. Tend to be go-getters, not waiting for things to happen, and a bit loud because you need to be heard. And so I mean, if you talk to Teto, he'll always tell you that hey, he's the loudest in my home. He even said maybe I was born already talking because of the kind of personality you tend to develop. So you exhibit quite a lot of those middle child personality traits.
Yeah, indeed, I do. You've got to be a survivor, because the older ones tend to bully you in the middle. And then the young ones also, they expect so much from you, everyone above. So yes, you have to be loud, you have got to survive and look after yourself. And we did that quite well.
Beautiful, beautiful. But about mom, you said she taught you the responsibilities of being a woman. Was that in the context of then or an independent woman, into the future? Because obviously times have changed those days and now.
Mom, I think, was preparing us for the world, and she was living in a world where she had learned so much about men in general. And I could see that there was a bit of, look, if you get married, you've got to be a good wife, you've got to be a good mother, and everything that came with that, nurturing and listening to others, having time for others, respecting men as well, respecting your brothers, because obviously you're going to be married into some big family, and there's going to be all these men that are going to have expectations beyond your own husband. So, and also mostly self-sufficiency. Mom also was a gardener. She used to win competitions, Fundile. And in fact, my love for plant science, botany, it came from having to follow my mother in her garden in the early days. And I remember she used to have a symbol, and all the women had symbols of their garden because they used to compete. Her garden was a symbol C.
Yeah.
And you can imagine, and she used to win almost every year, the spinach. And one thing I've taken on, I think, which is probably why I took botany, was when she would give me seeds. Seeds of mbona, maize, or of beans. And I would plant them in my little spot. She would give my own little spot as well within her garden. And I will do my thing there, and I'll make sure that every day I go and check how it is. But the most amazing, I think, I noticed, was to watch how the maize or a bean, a seed emerges out of the ground. And how different it is. I mean, your bean one, which is the most exciting, is the one that comes up in a hook. And before it throws out, the old seed, split into 2, and it becomes the primary leaves.
Yeah.
And when you look at the maize one, you would see a little drop of water in the middle of 2 blades of leaves, and you know that now something is coming out. that was so fascinating for a rural girl. That was me following my mother. And I fell in love with plants.
Yeah.
So mom was very much, you're going to be on your own, and also the other funny thing that mom Fundile was big about, was this thing of staying at home and not being all over the place. Stay at home, do what needs to be done, look after, the most important things. If you have to iron your uniform, don't be going around playing. And also, when people talk about others, mom was very upset. If you're gonna come with stories about here, this, she really used to discipline you when you start talking about Indos Abanyabantu, you said contain yourself, look after things that matter to you. Don't worry and gossip about other people. Let other people deal with their issues because you get into trouble. And she's really been an example in that regard.
Lovely. So you mentioned that you grew up at Fort Malan. Abanye bayibiza Intshachongo, something like that.
Intshachongo, absolutely.
Intshachongo. And there's a lot of, it looks like one of those rural villages that was just having this conveyor belt of, educated people, the Mayosi family, Abu Bongani there, and others. So what was this about that village that made it to be such a very progressive village compared to villages in the Dujwa or generally in Transkei area?
Fort Malan, when Fundi was a very special place in that even ourselves, we never were from Fort Malan originally. Our parents came from a place called Hlakoti, a place you cannot reach by car. So most of the people that really ended up living in Fort Malan were almost, I would say, immigrants coming from other parts. And some of them were teachers, most of them, the Mabuselas. The Mayuses, obviously my father. So they were migrating from areas which were so remote. And really trying to be closer to civilization, so to speak. And they really created a wonderful community, where, the basic value was that, you've got to go to school. That was non-negotiable. And kids, especially boys who wouldn't go to school, there was always like a spectacle on some days where, including my own brother, people were lazy to go to school. And my dad, as I said, was a principal. And he would send some of the boys, the big boys, to go and chase and look for those boys who are not at school and come and go and get them from home. So this new community of settlers at Fort Malan, the places around a ford, which was part of the migration route, of the Afrikaners when they were settling in South Africa. So it's a very special place, but that's why it was called Fort Malan, even though it's Intshachongo, but it is a very special place. People there compete for being successful. And it's something that we've all embraced.
And there was also this part of, some of the very people who would be teachers and also sort of like priests as well, It was education, and there was also this Christianity, influence from people that come from that part of the world. All right, let's move from the, and so we just fast forward to high school. I met you at St. John's College when I went there in 1981, but you were already a senior there. Why St. John's College?
St. John's was once again my father's choice. I had hoped that I would go to technical college. Whether I knew what technical college was when I was growing up, I just felt it sounded better than the St. John's College. And my father said, yes, you will go to technical college at the time, because we remember they were not, St. John's College was not a girls' school.
Yes, it was a boys' school for long.
For a long time.
First so, is not too much.
So when he said you are going to technical college initially, I was like, yeah, it sounds good, this technical college. But and I think it was it, what year was it? I'll have to remember which year that now St. John's opened up to girls.
76, 77, somewhere there.
76.
Yeah.
They opened, I think, 76. So, and they were still staying at technical. And then they would go and be transported to St. John's. So Dad said, that's where you're going. And remember, St. John's also was taking first-class students at that time.
Yes.
And I had happened to place very well in my Standard 7 results.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you're going with your brothers. Your brothers are there. There was still boy as well. There was a boy who was my uncle's son as well was there. But Mandisi had been there before. My father had been to St. John's College as well.
Yeah.
So for him, that was a place for, for the real thing. That was for me a place of excellence. If you really wanted to make it, go to St. John's, even though I did not become the star girl that you thought I was going to be, when I got to high school.
Well, they say it's not how you started. Look at where you are now, All right, so you went to St. John's. If you just reflect back, that's many, many years ago, but what would you say you learned out of being in that boarding school, St. John's College? Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, that was for me the most liberating moment of my life, to be allowed to be away from your strict parents for that long was so liberating, but also, going into a place with other people who are just like you, with the same objective, young as you are, and learning to survive in that environment, learning, and there were lots of shocks because you get to know a little bit about things that irritates others about you. So you get to learn a little bit about yourself differently outside the family setup, because that setup is not forgiving, so really surviving in sort of like, an environment where you are being built, but at the same time you're exposed to tough situations. You are on your own self-discipline. And I think for me, the standard of education, John, was just out of this world. Staying in Mzana with new friends, developing new relationships, getting to mold and fit into the group. But at the same time, when you're in the classroom, the world was completely different. Very, that standards at St. John's was key. And the great guys, the clever guys just separated themselves very quickly. Your brother, he used to clean all the awards. And, and Okwelentini and others, and you would watch them and you benchmark yourself and say, you know what, there are people actually do better than you, and you've got to, step up a bit. So I think self-discipline and also, keeping up to high standards, no room for failure, and being hard on ourselves, and that sense of pride, because I think St. John's has instilled, a lot of pride in us. With Highland Data, and the emblem, and the way we related to that emblem and what it meant. And when we looked at other schools, we thought we were the best. I don't know why.
In fact, the fact that we were not even called high school, we were called the college. And everyone, it was high school. We were St. John's College.
Indeed. Yeah, look, I said to him, what was that school? Buntingville, we would, people, but we thought, yes, we were better and all of it. But that was nonsense, of course, but the sense of pride and the thing that says, when you are amongst others, you better match up, you better be above the benchmark. And I think that was the best lesson from St. John's.
On the social side, though, because remember, these were formative years. You were, coming from home, strict parents, you're not really allowed to go spend time playing with other kids out there, all of a sudden you've got all the time, yes, man, looking after you to make sure that you don't do wrong things. But, that's the time when you start to have young men coming to, saying sweet nothings, and they want your attention. And there's also pageants, St. Miss Frechette and Miss St. John's. I can't remember.
St. John's teenage.
Yes. I think you
teenage.
Did you participate in one of those?
It was Miss Teenage, St. John's Teenage. My goodness, yeah. Looks, I mean, you are. I almost said when I was saying this of what I've learned, that I also learned that boys don't bite. Boys who are not your brothers don't bite.
Yeah.
And my friends, which were boys, very special. Onjibo,
Yes.
And my good friend, but I'll remember the names on Bulala if I say I can't remember them. A lot of good friends, and we used to tease each other, and obviously starting to have a boyfriend, something that, by the way, it's very difficult to do when you have got your brother in the same school or brothers. There you have a father in that school.
Yes.
And what is even worse, you date a person who stays in the same dormitory as he does. There was always this animosity between them in the same dormitory with this gentleman who happened to be my boyfriend.
Yeah.
But very interesting times, classes Emma showing, on a Friday.
Yeah.
Sometimes any activities, and I remember some of them would be just too early for my liking. Sometimes you go to these movies starting at 5 p.m., but you still need to be Mzana before dinner. So now you are breaking away from this nice activity and interaction with the boys. And Gababa, because we would get them Gababa and really find you guys still pushing and making sure that Gababa now has got a different seating arrangement for us for those activities. But very nice, I must say, Fundile. As I said, that's time where this nice, sweet life that you're starting to experience had a bit of limits, because Yayazu Tumandlov is going to be standing at the door there with her hands folded like this to see who's walking with the boy at the back. So one thing that we were clever about, some of us, was that, your boyfriend, I could happy when you go back to Emza, because Umandlo will be standing there. But a bit of, the nice, sweet life, but with a bit of discipline.
Yes.
And being measured, Yes.
All right. So at St. John's, had you made up your mind, or let's say when you got to matric, standard 9 and standard 10, which is grade 11 and 12 now, had you made up your mind once you have passed your matric?
Absolutely not. It was just one big good life, I must say. The more one stayed, I don't know if you remember the times where some of us were even arrested for having parties in Kulegwin, so life was just it was getting better and better each year, and we knew how to evade the system. I must say that I was caught up in the good time, Fundile, I must say. Even my studies were not as good as they were when I was doing standard 7, so I sort of lost a bit of focus. When I left, I didn't know seriously where I was going. I wasn't sure, but all I knew was that I wanted to go to university. After I finished my matric,
With your
And
exam?
my dad was secretly telling himself that Uyaxoka is going to Tsengwa this one. So that she goes and studies being a teacher. Yeah. And I was I was not sure that he was serious. I thought he was not serious. But when he realized that, when I realized that he was serious, he's talking to, I was also secretly saying to myself, he must be kidding me. I am not going there.
Yes.
I ain't going.
And why you need like at least which was the local University of Transkei, and say you must go to a teacher training college, to follow in his steps.
Indeed. Fundile, another thing, I really didn't, I was playing really, I must be honest with you. I was really not as focused as I should be at matric. You may not know this, but I only got school leaving.
Okay, yes.
And even though I told myself, teaching, it's not going to be a teacher. One thing for sure, I'm not going there. So Dad says, look, you had an opportunity to get a full and you didn't, so you're gonna go there. And long story short, I knew that he was sitting in the council of UNITRA. He was serving in the council, and I knew the names of the men he used to tell me about. The dean of students. I mean, I knew him by name, by surname, or Mr. So and so, and I decided when UNITRA was open to go and see this gentleman. And I said, look, my father is telling me to go to UNITRA. I'm sorry, to Tsengwa. I don't know why he doesn't want me to come here. And I really need admission here. And he calls my dad and say, why why she's supposed to be there? I mean, he sorted out the problem. And I said to him, I know I've got school leaving, but I will do my diploma here at UNITRA. There was a program called SSTD, Senior Secondary Teachers Diploma.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, a good compromise after a long story where my mom gave me 750, I remember, a check to register. My father had just been so angry with me. So this dean of students said, your father says it's fine. Then I went home, I got this 750 rands that my mom got from her general dealer shop. There I am, something in common with you, by the way.
Yes.
Because I know that we had that kind of background. So there I am, and got to UNITRA, registered. My father is angry, is not interested for that short time. And I did this SSTD. But one thing I was very clear about was that we were allowed to do a majority of the courses from the education department, and then you would major with what you want to teach. And I had chosen to take mathematics and biology as the two courses I was going to teach. But what was so nice about that, Fundile, is that I actually, you do botany 1, just like other science students. You do mathematics 1, just like other students. So I said, let me try and do this, but you are expected to go to second year level of, Bot 2 or whatever. Yeah. When you finish your SSTD, then you can be upgraded to actually do another year in science, to do your third year. So I was really trying to position myself, knowing full well that I really played during my last year at varsity. Yeah. Position myself that at least I can do my first and second year of these courses, so that when I come back, I can just finish, most of my third year courses in 1 year, which happened.
You will have been credited with the with having done well in the first and second year courses. Yeah.
Indeed. So that's really how it happened. So I started with SSTD before I did my BSc.
All right. But then, so when I read your bio, they talk about UWC. Now, Jani, how did you get to UWC?
UWC had been a very interesting destination for me. I thought I would go to UCT. And we had applied to UCT. I've applied to UCT. I think I also applied at UWC. I don't know if you remember, there was a year, I can't remember whether it was a strike. It could have been 82, 81. There was a post office issue, a strike, or where post office did not process letters, or they did not have its normal workflow as we know it. And I had my application stuck there, even though, the post office by the end of the year, because remember, we post our applications in August usually.
Yeah.
I think by November, things were flowing. But universities like UCT, who had those very strict closing periods. So when I arrived there, they said, look, we do have your application, but sorry, you are not, we didn't even consider you. Then I had to go to UWC. And I happened to know Professor Colin Johnson there, who used to teach us at University of he was at UNITRA teaching us botany. So I happened to know that he was at UWC, but I wanted to go into pharmacy at that stage. And I got to pharmacy and I found a very tough lady there, the dean, and we were all queuing there. And, she was so rude to me, Fundile, this lady. And I said, what is this? I am so unfortunate. I went to UCT, my application was disqualified. Now I walk into this dean's office, and it's a lady, this lady. And she was using really vulgar language as well. And, I thought, this lady. Then there I am walking out of this building. And as I turn my head to the right, guess what? I see Department of Botany. And I thought of my old friends, and I went in there and I looked for the dean, and the dean was Colin Johnson, who was my lecturer at UNITRA, and the rest is history. And he said, look, do your honors here. You've got good marks in botany in any case. So, and that's how it happened.
Wow. Sometimes, things just happen and you never know how they happened, but they become so important in terms of your trajectory, of life. But before we go further, that experience, yes, St. John's, because again, what I like about our interview is that you are real. You are talking about the good and the things that could have been better. You're talking about how you got a bit distracted, John, and then there's this experience of this dean who was actually quite rude. I mean, you don't expect that from a dean.
Yeah.
So, but life lessons for you for those, just those two things before we move on now. I want us to get closer to the working life.
Yeah. I think for me, it was disappointment, dealing with disappointment. Having this dream of being a pharmacist.
Yeah.
And on my feet, having to counsel myself that, look, you tried at UCT, it did not work. And you know how difficult those years was to go into the so-called white universities. So, and I said, all right, I'm going to settle in. And I think the UWC lady experience was a shocker, but also it asked for my reflection and dealing with disappointment without being at home, very far from home, and absorbing that. So I think that lesson of disappointment, very important. The second part of it, which was the other very interesting, what really worked had been maintaining good relationship with people that you come across with. I mean, Colin Johnson was a tough professor.
Yeah.
But the fact that he welcomed me because I respected him. He was my lecturer and I had a very good relationship with him. So
yeah,
I think that was for me dealing with disappointment and the power of relationships, that can really come to bear when we need them the most. I think for me was the issue. And lastly, there was no single moment at UWC that was going to be wasted by me. Yeah. I knew exactly what I wanted. I had been very focused. And what I planned to do for that year of honors was done.
Yeah.
And it was completed in time and better than I could have imagined, given my record for John, forget about the UNITRA experience, but I think I really surprised myself with the way things came out.
But I mean, you remember, even the standard 7 that you did those days, it was an external exam. So for you to have done so well then, the potential was definitely there. It's just that, upazanyiswe by this and that. So you were getting back to the person that you've always been, at the time. So you finished your honors, 1 year, and then what?
Well, whilst I was at UWC, I had applied for a scholarship, Aurora, they used to call it was Aurora scholarship, which was supported by the American government under the USAID program.
Yes.
And USAID was interested in making sure that African children, were given opportunities to study and be given opportunities to get very good tertiary education. So I joined that program and applied for a scholarship of merit through Aurora Associates out of Joburg. And I got the scholarship for the lab. I can say that it is the long story short, even though I got it the following year in 1990, I was already here at Wits trying to do my master's. But, the previous year, I had already gotten informed that USAID will grant me the scholarship to go to the United States to do my master's.
Yeah. Wow. Let's just press a pause, Doc. There's a few comments that have come through from people who are watching, and I'm going to ask Nombasa to just read them through. And if you are watching and you want to write something to Doc, because we're celebrating her success today. So please, whether you're on Facebook, on YouTube, we've got the technology that brings those messages together so that Nombasa can be able to read them, because it's good that there is an interaction between the audience and our guests, and for me not to monopolize this interview. All right, Nombasa, please go ahead.
Okay, Doc. The first comment is from Tangi Tsebe, who wrote, "Wow, Nombasa, still as beautiful as ever. I've always knew you will go far because you were very driven from a young age. It's good to see you after so long. I am so proud," with praise hands emojis there. And to finish off by saying, "Thanks, Fundi, and congratulations. Sending my love and wishes with heart emojis."
Wow.
And then the second comment is from Petiwe Madudu, who wrote, "I am so enjoying this, Dr. Fundi and Nombasa," with hearts emojis. And then the third comment is from Nozulu Nyamende, who wrote, "Best wishes and keep shining." Now the comment is from Dineo Ndibongo, who wrote, "Enjoying the session." Again from Petiwe Madudu, "Wow, Colin was a good man and a lovely person," with hearts emojis there as well. And the last comment is from Tetonyati, who wrote, "I'm so proud of you, Matole." Yes, those are the last we have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. You see now, Umteto is a bit biased because his wife is Macho, so I hope.
Usbari kaloku umthetho, usbari. And yourself, by the way, usbari. Indona ke namhlanje ke silapha ke. But really, thank you so much, Fundile. Wasn't that wonderful? Those inputs, or Gwinji there. Petiwe, of course, will kill me when I call her that now.
I call it Dr. Gui as well.
Yeah.
And she had to know that guy, Dr. Gui, I'm actually happy. I'm happy, with those inputs, and I need more because this is about you. Getting
thank you.
back.
Thank
People
you.
like you tend to have a lot of humility, And sometimes you don't even know how to deal with compliments. And I could see you blushing as people, as those messages were being read. Yeah, let's proceed. So you were already thinking of doing the masters at Wits, but then an opportunity came with USID for you to be able to go and do your masters in the US and in Illinois. All right, just tell us briefly about that. And I mean, now moving very far away from home, this young lady from Nchatongo, Fort Malan, who went to Cape Town and got her honors, and then now there she is. She has to cross the Atlantic to further her studies and have a master's. Just tell us a little bit about, just the decisions we had to make. Do I do my master's here? But then there's an opportunity and funding for me to go and study overseas, in the US and get my master's there. What went through your mind before you took your decision and said, okay, this is what I'm doing, and then communicating that to your parents?
Yeah, of course, my parents were over the moon. My dad excited, as he always, at that stage, he knew that now, this girl is unstoppable, so let her go. And I can write a book about that story of when he accepted that the first child of his that's gonna earn a degree is not one of his boys. Was me. So he had a shock of his life. But my father was happy because he had promised me that if I do get my degree, and I don't know why he thought I wasn't going to get it, but anyway, I got an S anyway from high school. So he said, if you get your degree, I'll buy you a car. Yeah. So he was very happy that I was going overseas because he was not going to get to buy that car. Because I'm not even sure he was going to afford it at that stage. He was a retiree, so I think he was quite kind of happy that this thing is postponed, this car issue. But Fundile, the most important thing here, I almost did not go overseas to go to school for two, one non-important, one very important, because I still aspired to do my master's at one of the, well-recognized universities, Wits. Yeah. I got admitted. I had the so-called advisor, who Petty will know that in science, we've got to have an advisor to do research. Yeah. And so I got Dr. Vincent Gray, who was a plant physiologist at Wits, to be my supervisor. Yeah. We had to apply for money to do our research from the CSR. It used to be called CSR FRD at that stage. Yeah. And I did get the funds to do my research. And now, how do you go to a professor who fought for you to get your research money? And you tell him in March to say, Prof, I'm so sorry. I've got to leave your team and go to the United States. So it was not an easy experience. He refused that I leave his team, refused completely. And I had to ask myself what was important here. Was his permission or my future? And I did something that I wouldn't want to repeat in my life, of one day packing my stuff with my white lab coat, which I lived in, as you know, we are lab rats when we were in masters, and I had to walk from that program. He never forgave me. I mean, even when I sent him SMS, emails even thereafter. And I had to pay that money back, by the way, for having taken that decision. My father had to actually pay for that money. In fact, I said to him, use the money you're going to buy the car with, use part of it and actually pay for this debt. Yeah. But I had to walk away from it. The second reason I would not have made it, I had a boyfriend that, I had to think very carefully. And we were getting into, I think we were moving towards engagement. We had been to both families. But it was very clear at the end of the day that I had to choose what was going to sustain me than just a human being who may not be there the following day.
So,
and that's how I chose to go.
So two men got rejected at the same time, one on the academic side, the other one on the,
on the heart side. yeah.
Decision was hectic, but at least at that point you actually said, you know what, it's Nombasa first, and everybody else, they come after me. I will do what I think is best for me. And looking back, it was the best decision for you.
Indeed.
It was the best decision for you. And
even though my father's fear, Fundi, it was a very strange one though. The only thing awandiyalangayo wathi mntanam, uncede, don't come back the uchate umlungu. That was but that was a very interesting premonition that my dad had. But that was really his biggest.
So my dad, go to the US. Please don't bring me a son-in-law who's white.
Yeah.
Maybe he had seen that you likely to be a candidate because there's a certain profile and the things who's accepted as as Black Africans, as males, and a very assertive, very goal-oriented woman. Sometimes la challenge iyazodlula, so utata mhlawumbe waseyibonile uba lo uzobuya emzini.
Also across the floor, this one, yes.
Exactly. But anyway, all right. So you moved to the US and you did your master's in Illinois at the what's the name of that university now?
It was Eastern Illinois University for my master's.
Yes. And so your research was on what?
I looked at, when I did my master's, it was still very much plant physiology, you know, and I made it very clear though that I want to study or solve an African problem.
Yeah.
Both for my master's and my PhD, and depending which professors were there. And at the time, I had a professor who was able to, or who studied, stresses of crops, especially maize, and what are the stresses? And I was actually quite keen to look at drought-related solutions, around maize physiology, which actually I took it further when I did my PhD, because then I did my PhD at University of Maryland, which is more on the east coast of the US, near Washington, D.C., where I looked at genetic engineering more, inside the cell, genetic manipulation to withstand drought for maize.
To create crops that can, be resilient to the kind of conditions that we sometimes find here in the continent. All right.
Indeed.
So,
yeah, absolutely, Fundile. I was always having this view that I still have to come back and make sure that I'm useful when I get back home.
Yes. All right. So you did your master's. Any highlights from there? And maybe just both of them and the PhD. Getting your master's, you're the first one in the family to get those masters, and then eventually your PhD. And you were supposed to be somebody who gets to and get married to somebody, and your brothers should have been the ones who are getting all
should
this.
Have gone to Tsengwa.
Yeah, but anyway, so any highlights from you? Well, I want us to focus on your work life now.
Look, man, Fundile, I had a very interesting master's degree in the US. If you structure your program, you could do it in 18 months or you can do it in 24 months.
Yeah.
And I had no reason why I couldn't do it in 18 months because I was there over holidays and I could take some of my courses during that holiday period. So I was lucky to finish in 18 months. And as I finished, that was now the end of the USAID program.
Yes.
And and we had to find another source because of Americans, if you don't have a scholarship, you're going to have to come home. Otherwise, you become a nuisance. But I was very lucky to get another sponsor for my PhD, which I then did in Eastern Illinois. And I must say that the highlight for me is to do that degree in 18 months. Illinois was the most boring place to be in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And you had to travel to see other South Africans. And we went there with a lot of South Africans. So you had made friends in that first 3 weeks of arriving in America. So we were able to interact and go see people, but I wanted out. And that's why I was out. The biggest highlight, Fundile, maybe for my PhD, was the fact that I was very fortunate to work with a very talented professor who was, in fact, an adjunct professor at my university, at the US Agricultural Labs, where I found a very able team of senior postgrads, and very lucky to have my PhD at the time to earn a patent in a special methodology of delivering genetic material into maize embryos. So I was very, very, very chuffed with that. So I left America on a high note, that at least something came out of my PhD.
Yeah. Now then, but here on this side, we, let not say all of us, but there's quite a number of people who got issues with GMOs, genetically modified, crops.
Organisms.
And I'm thinking about that. I'm even thinking about the current problem now. Again, around anti-vax, type of, it's a very strong global movement, the anti-GMO type of movement. So, and yet you were one of those people who now had the knowledge on how to, to modify, engineer those seeds. And you had your eye on Africa so that the crops, you deal with food shortages and all of those things that side. But then that technology, that innovation, on the other hand, there are question marks about what are the long-term effects of people eating, these GMO type of foods. So your thoughts around that?
Look, Fundile, when I came back, I was obviously a junior lecturer at the University of Pretoria, and I continued with research in genetics department, but I had a few students that I wanted to help understand the methodology, which was called electroporation, where you shock the membrane of an embryo to deliver, but very short, in seconds, where you really allow the membrane of that cell to open so you can deliver your gene there, or your DNA material, and then you grow the embryo in culture into a plant. So I had been so excited wanting to do that at University of Pretoria.
Yeah.
But obviously you come to a place called University of Pretoria that was still very much behind in development.
Yeah.
I had a choice to join companies that were in this space. There were many other DuPonts. I could have joined them to be a researcher in the corporate world. But again, given my issue, I wanted to come home. And this whole movement, anti-GMO movement, was really strong in Europe, even when I was finishing my PhD. And I knew that the corporate environment was going to end up with a lot of, and I didn't want to subject myself into that space. But I thought if I teach students, the tools, of the game, I'll probably be much safer. But my opinion, Fundile, I still feel that if you allow activists to speak on behalf of scientists, that's where you lose the story. My little mind was telling me something very simple. that you take a plant which is a poor maize plant, or let me say, maize plant that does have some level of resistance to drought. And you may find that in a population of 1,000, maybe 2 are most resilient, whereas others aren't, which means those 2 that are most resilient are expressing that protein that the others don't have. So all you would be doing would be to isolate that protein, which this one doesn't have, and transfer. It not that it didn't have, it did not have much of. It had less of. So I was always stuck in this very simple interpretation of there has never been a period where this particular plant does not have that which is enhanced in it. It always had, but it just did not have enough to allow it to resist the drought. So I don't want to I always answer this question like this. I'm not going to get into anything else. And I said to myself, all right, I've got the ability to transfer genes into plants. What about a black rose for funerals? What about a glowing carnation for the lovers of this world? What about a square tree, pine tree, so that when you go into the meal, you don't have to cut the tree into, that's the power of science. That's what genetic engineering could have done. But I think at that time, I may have lost just I never really wanted to be in the lab anymore. I thought it may be a good idea to be somewhere else with my, and do something else, which maybe you're going to ask me about just.
Okay. So I've just switched off my camera briefly. There's something I'm sorting out, but let's continue. All right. So 2003, you joined Kumba Resources. That's a mining company. All right. Now, just tell us, because you're moving from this plant world and you are highly qualified in that space of genetic engineering and everything. And then you move to the mining sector, and there you get into the portfolio of safety, health, and environment. Like, I'm just trying to look at how did that happen and why the interest, because then you excelled there and you went up and up and up, and like we have said in the bio that I read earlier.
Yeah, look, Dr. I became a failed scientist. I just have to agree that I am not going to push science anymore, and then I ended up, long story short, as a deputy DG in the Environment of Environmental Affairs and Tourism, and looking after the so-called brown issues, pollution, you name it, waste. And I also looked at green issues, which was your biodiversity, as in parks, as in making sure that we conserve. Looking at flora and fauna, anything we can think of. So I made a name, I think, within the 3 years I had worked in government as a deputy DG. And my interaction with the industry, especially through that plastic bags regulations, we were starting with the Vali Musa. That really introduced me to quite a few individuals in the industry that noticed that there's a person like this, that an individual that worked at Kumba, who was part of those conversations with the plastic industry. Thought that, Exxaro now today, Kumba then Exxaro today, could benefit in headhunting this lady, who had been actually developing legislation with our teams that time, legislation that didn't have teeth, old acts of 1960, that had been there forever. And we, myself and my boss, Chippy Olva, we set ourselves to change the law so that the law can have teeth, so that people can go to jail for transgressing environmental laws. So then I got to be known for that. Then I get invited to an interview. Then I became the head of SHE because of the environmental side of my exposure at the time when the mining industry was not strong in environment.
Wow, wow, wow. And by the way, I mean, now you're getting into another industry that's got a legacy of its own. This is an industry, and I'm talking about the mining industry broadly. This is an industry that has always thrived, you know, through certain designs in the population, where places like Transkei or Eastern Cape, KZN are perpetual reserves for chiefs. You bring them here, you know, not spend much in terms of the health of the employees. And once they are no longer of use, you know, TEPA must make sure that you get fresh ones. And these ones must go home and wilt and, you know, die with minimal compensation. That's the history.
Yes.
You know, on one side, it helped South Africa because it was a big industry from an economy point of view. But on the other hand, you know, it was also causing trouble, you know, and also issues of the environment. We're still battling with some of the issues now about, you know, how the mine dumps are creating health challenges for the communities near those mine dumps, and also the issue of there's some water situation, acid water or something like that. That's still a big problem even today. So you're going into this industry as a person who now is going to be representing the people who are actually who things that they've done wrong to you know, to the population and to the environment.
Yeah, look, I hated the extraction industry. Mining, when I was in the department, I really hated mining with all my heart because obviously of its impacts on the environment. But what I was very happy with is the stuff we did from a legal point of view for compliance sake, where I said, from a legal point of view, the regime itself is stringent enough that it will help me to push this organization to do the right things.
Yeah.
So I went there really to be, you know, to say, I would like my colleagues that I left in government to look at me when I'm in Exxaro or Kumba and see whether I'm also failing in really keeping up to the standards as other mining companies have done. Yeah. And I thought it was going to be a lovely challenge for me, pushing the boardroom at Exxaro at Kumba at the time to abide to good environmental stewardship. Yeah. And to say, Fundile, it was not difficult. And it could be just the fact that people, if you show your passion about something, and engineers are left-brainers, and if you can see, Shom Teto does sometimes demonstrate a bit of that when you were with him. Yeah. You've got to balance, you know, you've got to be factual, you've got to be convincing, you've got to speak the commercial language, whether you're talking about a social product like safety, so to speak, social product like look after the environment. You've got to always link it back to what is going to be the business impact. Why is it a business imperative to really align to those values before you comply to law? And I found a set of wonderful leaders at Kumba who were really ready to learn from someone like me, and they gave me the budget to show that it can be done. Yeah. So I can sit here proudly today to say, you know, Exxaro is one of the leading companies when it comes to environmental stewardship. You can Google, we had a lot of awards, Fundile, up to not long ago on issues of ESG. We do get, you know, the awards, and, you know, if you look at the FTSE Russell as well, we are rated as the leader in the mining industry in as far as the ESG, which is environment, social, and governance. And so we're very proud of this reputation that we've built for ourselves, and to say that miners can do it. And the law is so good that you, not in the olden days where you see these golden dumps as you drive to the airport, where in the past you did not, where there was no provisions, or let me say there was no law that forced you to provide financially, to the extent that we even give guarantees that you will look after your own damage. And I think we've moved, good stuff. Very proud of the progress.
Beautiful. Now, again, this is an industry that has always been male dominated. Very few women, were in that space. And there you are, going there, starting at a certain level as an expert, and then now moving and starting to be more of a manager and a leader. Now, were there any difficulties? I watched a short 5-minute video of yours where you were talking about how you've managed to navigate the issues of gender and how you actually made them your allies to help you to deliver on your mandate. So I just want to hear, we're still in the Women's Month, so a lot of women can learn a thing or two around how to get in those environments that are potentially hostile, but be able to get the people to actually be your supporters.
Absolutely. It's easy to enter an organization and you are so gung-ho about who you are and your PhD and, all of those things. And experiencing the reality of the organization is something else. And I've learned, and in a nutshell, because I know at some point, this is not a whole day conversation. Yeah. What I've learned when I arrived at Kumba was that I've arrived at a company of high performers who know this industry better than me. Yes. They've been doing it for years before I arrived. And all I needed to do was to watch what works around here so that I can do that which works. And I looked at how men work. I look at these engineers. Yes, I was not an engineer. I used to say to them, hey, Nina, I'm not an engineer, but I'm a genetic engineer. You are other engineers. So just to feel like I belong. So it was about understanding what works. Men that I watched, that I worked with, that I admired, were very competent, consistently, and respectful of other people. Yes. They may not have worked with a woman like me before. Yeah. They may not have had a sister or a wife who had a strong personality as I do. To the extent that, just like my father, who has made mistakes about me as a woman, they also could make mistakes about their perceptions of me and how they accepted me. So the first thing I thought I would do was, they are very good, very competent, and I will be exactly that in what I do. Because I realized that, that was respected in the organization. And when I watched them, and I probably like power, and I don't make bones about it. Maybe I do. Otherwise, what was I aspiring for? Yeah. And I looked at these people. I'm sitting in the executive at a young age, and I watched them. They're so powerful, these people who are in the operations, in mining. And I'm just a lines girl. When the ball is off the court, you take it and bring it back to them to play. And I felt I wanted to play with them. I want to also be in operations so that people can listen a little bit more. I wanted to contribute. Maybe that's where the power issue comes in. And long story with the great leaders that we had in this organization who were so willing to change, gave me an opportunity, being a non-engineer, Fundile, to go into operations. But I had to be demoted out of the Exco to go into operations. Wow. And I welcomed it. And I went and worked with these men. And I've got another book about the month before I joined operations, because I was never so scared in my life to move in a space which I'm not comfortable with, to move in a space where I've got to have to rely on others to teach me mining. And those were the men I found who were so nasty to me at the beginning. And that's not what we're talking about today. But those men, I had to subject myself to their learnings And they would say, hey, Nombasa, you know what? Underground, the back 5 belt is broken. And now all of those, this and that, we can't move. And I said, guys, can you take me to the place where you say there's an issue? And I spent time with those guys. I invested a lot of time, many years of walking with them underground, in my boots, in my hard hat, listening to them, appreciating the lessons that they've given me. And they knew that I respected the fact that they taught me mining because they were there before me. I never knew mining, but all I knew was that I was a great leader. And I told them, I'm not here to compete with you guys. I'm here to learn from you, but I'm your leader at the same time. But whatever you teach me, be very careful because I'm going to hold you accountable. And I think those were the wonderful stories. And I tell every woman in mining, if you are in it for the good of the organization, and you actually know and listen and get yourself into what works, people are going to vote for you. So those boys, once you don't threaten them, once you actually acknowledge that they've taught you, and you respect them, they make mistakes like many men we know in our lives. They will vote for you. They will vote for you, and they voted for me, Fundile, many times, and they still vote for me even today.
Yes. All right. And then last year you were made the head of strategy for the whole organization now. I mean, you spend time in operations and basically saying to men, whatever you can do, I can do. Maybe I can even do it better, So now that you've done that and you were very good at running the operations, especially the coal part of the business, and then now you are being brought again to focus on matters of strategy, organizational strategy, and drive that. But then you were not there for long because it's only last year that you were actually made to be the head of that. And then you now the CEO designate. So moving from operations to matters of strategy now, where you must think medium term, long term, because operations, yes, it works within the organizational thingy. It's around efficiencies, around quality, and all of that. So now you must now sit back, analyze the environment outside of you, the legislative framework, the political whatever, and be able to guide the organizational strategy. Any challenges there, in that transition?
Yeah, well, what was maybe just to link it to, fortunately, I was not outside operations. So what it meant is, Exxaro realizes that, as a fossil fuel company in terms of coal, we've got to really look at what does this mean for the future of the organization from a strategy point of view. We've got all these amazing capabilities in mining. So we cannot say, oh, well, we will mine coal till, coal's demise and we'll close the doors. That is such an irresponsible thing to do. So our view has been that we will not allow our mining capabilities to go to waste. So we will find other minerals to mine, but we didn't know which minerals those will be. And that's where my role came in, to sustain this business and make sure that this business continues to grow into the future. Then we need to get some girls and boys to look at what could those different commodities look like. And that was what I was tasked with, which we started last year. And I'm very proud to say that the journey has been fabulous with a small team. We did get to a short list of 3, which I'm not going to share with you right now, beyond coal, because we will share that on the 20th of September. We have our Capital Markets Day, where we'll share our strategy in its fullness, including the energy aspect of the business. Remember, Exxaro is paying my fees, so I cannot not talk about the energy side. But Fundile, my role was to go and look at how we can diversify our minerals beyond coal. And in March of this year, our board approved our strategy. And now we are going to get ready to go and get some go to the market to buy some assets, so that we can continue to mine for our shareholders and also for our grandchildren and what do you call it, young children and others to come who are interested in this business.
Well, this has been a bumper period for the people in the mining sector. When you look at all the results that have been released, the JSE in the last months, I mean, the organizations are making bumper profits and the shareholders are smiling all the way. So you definitely have that money to go and buy other assets. But, but anyway, so the process of you getting to be the CEO designate, I mean, remember in your past, sometimes you would be headhunted to do this and that. That's even how you got in there. So this time around, yes, you were already a senior executive and you had been ahead of, the coal operations and stuff. Did you put up your hand, or somebody up there who believes in you said, Nombasa, your time has come?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say that there are many able men and women in Exxaro who could be CEOs.
Yes.
And I think for me, the decision that the board took a few years ago, when they were making sure that the succession plan works, had been what is going to be the future of this business.
Yeah.
So that the person that leads it is the person that, may have shown that they can deliver in the space. They have a track record in production. They have a track record in leading large numbers of people in the organization, and also having interacted with the stakeholders in the organization. So I may have been well positioned, Fundile, for this. That about 3 years, 2018, I was amongst those who were approached by the board, the remuneration committee of the board, to say that we believe that you are amongst the strongest candidates that will be looked at as the future CEO in the company, and we would like you to join a specific, not sort of training because you're almost there, but sort of a conditioning program that lasted for 2 years, which ended at the end of 2020. Very intense, very purposeful, which then was monitored over a period of 3 months. The people that started with inputs into the program, and they take anyone in the organization and interview them. Then they interview another group for specific reasons. They give you feedback, fix this, do that, look at this, and you feel that you are in a big brother program for that 2 years. So I guess, Fundi, amongst the people that were given this opportunity, they may have felt that, this one should be the fit one. But I think there are a lot of women, I can assure you that, who can, and men, lots, cannot be necessarily 20, maybe, a handful of them that could take this role.
Yeah. All right. So at least, you see, sustainable organizations are those organizations who look into the future, are those organizations who sometimes you look at different scenarios and whatever, and then come up with plans. Mteto normally talks about having the memory of the future, so when the future arrives, already there's memory around it. So you were in that process and you have come out on top. Now, being a woman and having done all these great things, let's say within Exxaro, your role in lifting others as you were going up?
Oh, yeah. I have mentored both men and women, young and old as well, which I've really enjoyed thoroughly. We never had the benefit of mentors, some of us, when we were growing up and when we actually took positions, because you still had to be schooled in this masculine way of leading. So it was never really something that I personally pursued, because you had to sit with some male. So I took the opportunity to allow others to get into my space, understand how I've survived. And I have a very simple philosophy in my mentorship of others, which is mindfulness. If you are mindful and you are fully present with all your senses, you tend to understand and know, become very, it doesn't matter what you tell yourself. You've got to focus on what works wherever you are, and then you do what works. And that changes you, Fundile. I don't even need to put science or a subject behind that. We start practicing being in a moment. We start practicing observing leaders that, impact us positively, successful leaders. We get to talk about why is it that individual is successful, and then you go and play, you go and demonstrate. You start being the CEO before you become a CEO.
Yes.
And I think for me, you've got, because people are looking at you, and I always say to my mentees that look at yourself as being in an interview on a daily basis, because you cannot be this leader all this time in the organization, and then on an interview day you become a different person. So you've got to be seen as a leader. You've got to be seen as a CEO from day. Try to be a CEO until you become one. On day one, you're going to be less of a CEO. You're not going to do everything well. But if you are mindful about that which works and that which you're trying to do, you're going to fine tune it. You look at others, you correct, and you then become that which you're practicing for. So I've enjoyed this mentorship. I don't always have time. But when I go to the mines, I used to, before COVID, every Friday, I'll be at a mine. And I'll have group mentorship, call women, even those underground come. We have a session, 1 hour intense group mentorship, but I did pick up some of the ladies to mentor. Men as well, as I said, I've mentored. But I must tell you one thing. Women are the most difficult of the species to mentor. That's another book I will write, because they come to you desperate, they want promotion, they come to you at the worst time, and they don't have time or to do time or enough time to invest more in a position so that they can really be respected. But yeah, it's something that I try to work on, and I'll do it till I go to my grave, to mentor people. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So now you are obviously, as the CEO, it's now about leadership. So if you had to just say it in 3 words, your brand of leadership.
Sure. What I hear is authenticity. And I hear listening to others. Or listening would be the second one. What is the third one is empowering.
A nurturing, empowering kind of leader.
Yeah. But also I hear that I'm a tough leader, and I don't deny that. I know that I'm tough when I have to be tough. And look, if you're gonna kick me, I'm gonna kick back very hard. So I like those, which I call situational stuff. But being known as a people's person, having learned very hard. I think all of those things people are saying, maybe authenticity is the only one, but everything else that they mention in terms of listening and empowering and being people's person, all those 3 have been learned all these years. Because I had bent my fingers where things did not work, and I had to find what works.
So some people, because again you're getting into these environments that were male dominated, they look at those who are ahead of them as females, and they want to emulate and become more muscular. Do you need to lose your femininity, as a leader, and show the toughness and the arrogance of men, so that you can be accepted in that boardroom. Or you could actually achieve quite a lot without losing the fact that you are feminine and you are bringing certain things that the men don't have.
In fact, men had to learn the hard way in the last 10 years that that style of leadership does not work. And I think men had to learn from the nurturing side of women in the way that they lead, so being much softer. I think men are the ones who are coming on our side to actually do that. So I had to stand still and be myself and really help my colleagues. There are senior people that have even asked to be mentored by me because they realize that there's this thing they don't have, which I really enjoyed doing, of helping them to soften up a little bit and look back and see the results. Amazing. So I must say there is no need for us to change who we are to be great leaders. Just be authentic, base your leadership on yourself and who you are. And I think you will really achieve quite a lot.
All right. I'm just going to go to, we are almost wrapping up now, the questions or comments that are going to be coming through. But in the meantime, to those people who are looking at Dr. Nombasa Tsengwa, who is the CEO designate of Exxaro, who has gone through, this intensive, steep learning curve on so many things, yet she was already an expert on something, and they want to emulate you, younger people who want to one day be, in the kind of leadership position that we are in. Just some tips for them. And that's one part. The second part, what does Women's Month mean to you in this sort of context, and maybe even at a global context? So, but while you are thinking about those, then I'm going to ask Nombasa to read some of the comments that have come through.
All right, Doc. The first comment is from Mamas Matibe, who's asking any programs for young upcoming graduates, both males and females. And a comment from Petiwe Matudu, who wrote, wow, a PhD in 18 months is a remarkable achievement, Nombasa. Well done, with love emojis there. And another comment from Mohelepi Ndlovu wrote, lovely interview, Bele. And Petiwe Matudu wrote again, drought-resistant plants are extremely important in this period when we are starting to experience the effects of climate change of our ability. And another comment which says, that's my aunt, with a smile emoji there. It's written by the idealistic man. And another comment. And another comment from Amanda, who wrote, wow, what a lady, professional and a leader. Amazingly, she grew into the role, which makes her achievements even more admirable. Then a comment from Buli Makula, who wrote, wow, powerful, what a phenomenal, exemplary experience. Namhlatina Siwendu wrote, I'm watching too, how wonderful. Unondumiso Matenja wrote, thank you, Dr. Fundi, for bringing Dr. Nombasa to us, especially in this Women's Month. I'm very inspired by her as a mining engineer, entrepreneur in Dalmas, which is in one of the Exxaro's operations. She says, I would love to have coffee with her one day, even if it's virtual. And then another comment from Bantwini Matika, who wrote about Auto Yokomo. Another comment again from Petiwe Matudu, which is operations strategy with an approved sustainability plan and now CEO. That is quite impressive, Master. You have earned your stripes. I am so proud of you. But love hearts emojis there. And another comment from Zotumo Sishi, who wrote, good interview, Bele. Congratulations, Nombasa. You have always been one of a kind amongst our phenomenal women leaders. Wishing you the best, with the love emoji there as well. Then another comment from Tandi Tebe, wow, I am so enjoying listening to your journey, Kakane. It's indeed true that dynamites come in small packages. Well done, well narrated life's journey. This is very motivational. And again, another comment from Amanda who wrote, wow, again, she is so inspirational. The last comment is from Tu Umiza, who wrote, so proud of you, Nombasa. Keep shining, Tole, with a love emoji. Thank you. That's all we have for now.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you for all of those comments. I'll hand over to you, Ambassador.
Wow, Fundile, if you told me who was going to be, I thought it was just going to be the two of us talking, and that other people would have probably gotten this at another time. I didn't realize that there was a link to other people. Maybe I would have not done it. I would have run away. But I'm really, really grateful and happy that our conversation could have inspired others and they've learned something from this conversation. And really, I said to you, I was fearful that I come to this interview and you don't find anything engaging from me and I disappoint you. And you said for sure it will be engaging, and thank you for that. So if I just respond to the question on young people programs within Exxaro, we definitely do have a Bursars program where we identify areas that are critical in the future of our strategy. And we would take that individual through university. There are chosen universities that we use. And we also take what we call PITs, professionals in training. Some of them are coming from our Bursars program, some of them not necessarily from that Bursars program. And it is a very, I must say, very, it's one of the highly rated programs, our PIT program. And I'm very proud of what we see our youngsters do. They're given real work projects to implement, from the beginning to the end with coaches in the organization. And we would have this day where they actually showcase their work and they win prizes. We send our winners overseas to go and experience what they've been trying to achieve and learn. So yes, we do have programs to expose young people and many more that are not necessarily these formalized ones, but we've got digital platforms. One of the big, powerful one at Exxaro is called My Next, where we really expose people to development material. And in the course of your tenure or your work at Exxaro, we do identify an independent development plan for you, where we take you through stages, developing you from where you started to where we think you need to go according to your IDP. And then going to you on the PhD, that is PhD. It was my master's that I did in 18 months and my PhD not necessarily that short. So I would have loved to have done it that short. And then Fundile, you've asked me, maybe let me talk about first the person who was from Lupan. I just forgot the name, who would like to have coffee for me. I'm known to love to have coffee with our employees and colleagues. So Sitembile is listening today, I know that, and she will make sure that somewhere, somehow we do get coffee. And I will really enjoy that myself. Idealistic Man is my lovely nephew, who was some Adam Tetonyati at St. John's, who cleaned up all the awards. I'm very proud of him, and I knew he'd be listening. He's my biggest supporter, and thank you very much, young man. So on the tips to others, Fundile, really, I talk to young men and men both, to say that it was nothing for me that was different than firstly being an honest individual. Honest to what I believe is to be expressed in an organization, whether you like it or not. That's how you demonstrate leadership. And I was actually talking to my niece yesterday to say, if there's something in an organization or where you are that is not done right, even if it's not in your space, take responsibility to be a part of the solution. That's where you demonstrate leadership. And the next part for me, especially when we're a female, we are expected to sometimes perform twice as much as men or than men. Do that. Create a brand where you don't allow anybody to delegate you to the underperformers. Don't give anybody any reason to just see you as a tick box exercise or as an experiment. Make an impact in the little space that organizations give you. Within 5 months, people will feel you, people will know that they've got a leader in you, and they will quickly want to put you in a space where you can make a greater impact. So for me, those have been my weapons. And also respectful, be respectful. When you engage people, whether it's issues of pain and you are disrespected, but you've got to engage in an intelligent manner. And lastly, and these are little things for me. And I'm not going to go into big words or whatever else. Lay your hands in a book on mindfulness. And I promise you, it liberated me. It changed me from being perceived as a leader that did not care about people, a leader that was ineffective, even though I was known to be so bright and I was making the scores, I was performing, but I was not managing people well. And the day I took the book on mindfulness and I learned what it meant, it changed my life. And it allows you to open yourself up to have a 360-degree observation of yourself. And I think August month, I had always been very cynical about even issues of women, because all these meetings and gatherings where people are rehashing statistics about women are not doing this, women are not doing this. I think there is a move now where I think we are beginning to talk about listening to people's real stories and, talking about things or solutions that would change the workplace to really empower women in a meaningful way. So I think the meaning for me now, Fundile, is how do we making this day as constructive, making this day a day where we really come up with solutions rather than just rehashing the problems of the past, bringing the awareness where it should be given, and involving men, to participate in that. And we've succeeded a few days ago where we had a conference of Women's Indaba with men participating fully. So I think there's hope.
I love that, the fact that you are saying, yes, whilst a lot of men caused a lot of problems in the past, but actually you still need them as allies to be part of the solutions to some of the challenges that are brought in by patriarchy. I think that's a fresh approach because I attended another session that was organized by the city of Joburg last year. And I was invited as a speaker at this, function. But one of the people who's an MEC, actually lambasted all the men who were there. It's almost like, why are we there? Yet you invited us to come and speak.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't understand why invite us if you're gonna then tell us that we shouldn't be here. This is supposed to be women to women talking. So I like that approach, but also the issue of mindfulness. Now I'm wearing my medical cap. In the jobs that you are doing, as leaders, top managers, stress is inherent within the job. You can't do those jobs if you cannot handle stress. And one of the things that is becoming very, very important, people to proactively manage stress. And mindfulness is one of those things that is now being prescribed, by people like me to executives and other people in high stress environment, that you need to learn mindfulness, maybe yoga as well, And when you look at these are practices that come, like mindfulness originates from the Buddhist spirituality, and it grounds you. It grounds you so much, it makes you to notice at every moment what's around you, what is happening, and so I cannot encourage people more.
That's good.
Mindfulness is one of those things that, when we talk of problems, don't wait for problems to happen. Then you want psychotherapy to deal with the problem. If you want to improve your emotional resistance and other forms of resistance, I'm sorry, not resistance, resilience. If you want to build your resilience, then mindfulness is that magical tool. But you must commit. You must commit, and you must be able to switch off and be able to switch on in terms of what's happening within and around all the time. So I'm glad that you are encouraging people around that. So how do you switch off besides mindfulness? Yeah. How do you, because you've got so many things, roles, you are a wife, and you are a parent, you are an aunt, you are so many things, you are a CEO. How do you balance all of these things, and how do you switch off?
No, look, I think you've been very, I'm so glad that you are supporting this practice, because it's a practice, mindfulness. You really manage your stress, as you rightfully say, but you need to do more. I'm quite a physical person. I'm still hoping to do my 10th comrade, by the way, so I can get my green number. But I need a lot of work to do so. So long distance running for me, just taking my techies and on my own hit the town and just go forever and run. And, I think for me, that really gives me that opportunity to be on my own and think and switch off. And I don't have my cell phone. And I notice everything when I run. Again, you are mindful, you're present. And I really enjoy being on the road. I've taken on now, because I think one needs to strengthen up. I'm doing strength training a little bit more. I do boxing nowadays. 20 minutes of boxing is amazing for me. I switch off quite well. So it's for mine is very physical. And I do a lot of quiet time on my own reading. And I don't really finish books. Sometimes if I finish them, I return to them, depending what I got from them. But I also love to laugh. I love to dance. My goodness, I used to hate when those discos used to end at St. George's. And I can have my own disco sitting in my bedroom, and I dance a storm on my own, go crazy. But I also love to interact, as I say. My sister lives with me now, and we just laugh. If I sit with her and I start and she starts, I don't know the world out there. So that's just who I am.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just two comments. My big brother, Mteto, has got a comment for you, Mbasa. Nombasa, please read the comment. I know I can read it myself, but please read it.
Okay, Doc. The comment from Tetonyati, he wrote, "The future of Exxaro is bright. Mbasa, you are the best person for the job." And the last comment is from Tulani Shabalala, who wrote, "South Africa is in a safe hands. What a titan." That's all we have for now. Thank you.
Beautiful. Wow. All right. Yeah. Wow. So I don't know if you want to say anything to those are comments, they're not questions, but you are allowed to respond.
Yeah. Look, for me, really, I am so humbled by the feedback and overwhelmed by the number of people who've been listening and really giving those warm, wonderful words of encouragement. And also to say, these words, when people tell you all of these great things and what they perceive of you, it makes you feel good. But make no mistake, I think for me, it's still a learning journey. And I say to people that I have, like Mteto, for instance, people that know me who are also in positions, senior positions, that, you know, I'm here open to advice, open to phone calls when Exxaro is not doing what you guys have thought should be done. Please don't hesitate to give us a call if we embarrass you in any way. But really very, very encouraging and really a heartwarming feedback and words of encouragement I've received tonight. And also from you, my brother, for first recognizing me. As much as I try to hide, and people do say that sometimes you found me and got me out of my, you know, hiding, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this. And thank you. I really, really do appreciate.
Enkosi kakhulu Mandlangisa. Thank you very much. Yes. Hayi kaloku njengoba nditshilo, you know, how do I call it now? Ubuhlobo buninzi. Sihlobene kakhulu.
Yes.
Thank you very much, man. You know, it's been a very enlightening interview for me, a very inspirational interview. And in a way, it also helps me because, you know, this is 40 years we are talking about.
Absolutely.
Trying to shrink it in just about 90 minutes. But please continue doing good, Basa. You know, there's still a lot that South Africa is going to get. South Africa and the continent and the world out of you. You've only just started, you know. When you are now fully in control of that driving seat, there's more that's going to come out, and we will continue to, you know, be proud of you and what you do, and pop out, you know, some champagnes when you achieve certain milestones, you know. But yes, no, I'm very proud of you, and please continue doing good. And yeah, that's about all from my side. And I want to thank everybody who joined us for this long interview. You know, when people have achieved a lot of stuff, you know, it is not easy to shrink, you know, the interviews into a short period. And yeah, I hope you now know this person called Dr. Nombasa Tsengwa much better than before this interview. And thank you very much for joining us. And tomorrow we will be back at 4 o'clock. We will be hosting another powerhouse lady, Dr. Lulu Gwagwa, you know,
Wow.
CEO of Lereko Investments, philanthropist, academic, the first Black town planner, Black female town planner in South Africa. So yeah, you'll be inspired again tomorrow. So thank you very much, Basa, and thank you to everybody. Until next time.
Thank you to everybody. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nombasa, as well for the support.